You got the wrong gynecologist on stage here. Not here to talk about any kind of health. My topic today is the paradox of affordability of Indian textiles. What is affordable? Is it a weekend trip to Darjeeling? How long does it take from here? A couple of hours by road? I heard there are plenty of public transport options available. Or is affordable a flight to Goa? Fun times with friends? Or maybe flying further away to a distant land, exploring an entirely new country. What is affordable? According to the dictionary, affordable is something that is inexpensive, that most people can pay for. But who decides affordability? I am here today as an Indian textiles enthusiast and an advocate of Indian handloom industry to talk about the affordability of the products I champion. I'm fairly active on social media. That's the medium I use to communicate with you. And every time I open my Instagram application, my feed is filled with beautiful pictures of gorgeous women from all over the world, all extremely accomplished, highly erudite, wearing your most gorgeous sarees. It's a pleasure to watch. The message is loud and clear. Buy only handloom, wear only handloom to save our weavers, our tradition, our heritage, our national identity. What my very aesthetic explore page of Instagram does not tell me though is the insurmountable distance between the affordability of heritage handloom sarees and the purchasing power of the average saree wearer. In other words, are handloom sarees a product for the common woman of this country, or have they become an entity only for the economically privileged? Let us consider the cost of making a standard simple silk saree. Not like this. This has a lot more designs, but something simpler. To make one mulberry silk saree, weavers require about 700 grams of mulberry silk yarns. In the financial year 2022 to 2023, the average price of that was 4,590 rupees per kilogram, give or take. These yarns are then dyed, set on the looms, the weavers make the fabric, and then they are prepared for the market. Dyeing costs, say, around 300 for a kilogram. Then let's take 100 rupees for additional miscellaneous costs. Then is the remuneration of the weavers. Now, to make a simple saree, about a day's worth of work is required, and the more designs they have, the more time it is going to take. It can be days or weeks or months. How much do you think we should pay weavers so that they can support their families and lead respectable lives like the rest of us? Let's be totally conservative here and decide not to pay them more than 300 rupees for a day. The saree is prepared, then you add the distributor's commission, the seller's profit, the overheads, the 5% government mandated GST. You are left with a price of about 10,000 rupees for one piece of simple silk saree. According to provisional estimate published by the Government of India on 31st May 2023, the per capita net annual income on an average in India was 98,374 rupees. Now, I understand that the cost of India is far less than in many other countries, though inflation is also a constant worry, which in December last year, just 2 months ago, was around 5 to 6%, especially because of the high prices of vegetables and onions. When there are bills to be paid and income is limited, does splurging on a saree seem like a reasonable option? Now you can say that you want to discard the entire middle chunk. You're not going to pay any middle person and buy directly from the weavers. Amazing idea. That's what I've been doing for the past few years. I've personally visited many handloom clusters in India, including Banaras, Kanchipuram, closer home, Pulia, and Dunya Khali. And in my experience, the difference of price is going to be around 30%, which is a lot. But is it enough to make it affordable for everyone? Because everyone wants to support weavers and help them. It perhaps had been different if sarees had a good return on investment like gold. If you notice, I know you guys are too young, but if you ask around, gold prices in the last few years have skyrocketed. Even then, India remains one of the biggest consumers because it is considered a sound investment. In the last 20 years, the average return was around 11.2%, which is something that sarees cannot boast of. Only a handful of anti-Indian textiles can yield such results. This is in stark contrast to the pre-loved market of European classical designer wear, like a Hermes working bag or a Chanel boucle jacket, which cost an arm and a leg. They are incredibly expensive. But there is a flourishing resale market and the prices keep going up. So even if an average owner scrapes through their savings to buy one, they can still stumble by the purchase. Now, at this point, you may think that I'm being a complete phony. I'm contradicting myself. I'm talking about handlooms on social media, and here I am standing here trying to tell you that you know what, they're too expensive. I am an Indian handloom enthusiast. I declared that at the beginning. I love to read about the history of Indian textiles. I think it's an amazing way to know about our country. I consider myself a collector of sarees. I like to flaunt them. They bring me a lot of love and joy, which is also the reason I want to be pragmatic about it. It is easy to give into the romanticism, but at some point I have to take a step back and understand what did Indian handlooms textiles stand for historically. And when I go down the annals of history, I find, rather to my delight, that Indian textiles were being exported the world over for millennia, not just centuries. In excavation sites of Egypt and Jordan, fragments of cloth have been discovered which have been traced to the Indus Valley civilization. So you can imagine the transcontinental trade that was happening so long ago. And how handloom clusters developed in India from the patronage of local rulers. For them, it was a matter of their legacy that my name is going to remain immortal for generations. And also, these textiles were a huge source of revenue for them. They were exporting them, they were selling it to other kingdoms, they were making a lot of money in the process. They would not just sponsor their own weavers, they would also invite elite weavers from other territories, entice them with attractive packages and incentives. And sometimes weavers would migrate as being part of royal dowry. We have to remember something that historically, heritage textiles like Banarasi, Kanjivaram, Pedhani were being created for use by members of royal families. And at the very least, by people who were financially very highly placed. They were never meant for the plebeians. And perhaps we should recognize that they still are not. Now, with the explosion of social media, saree movements also gained a momentum. A few years ago, there was a very popular viral trending saree movement. You may have heard of it. It was hashtag 100 saree pact. It was an amazing idea. It made a huge difference to the saree wearing culture, especially among urban women. It promoted and supported Indian handlooms, and the weaving community really benefited. For the first time, we were being told not just to wear sarees, but also to invest in handloom sarees. Now, in the last few years, I think all of us will agree that India has witnessed an internet boom. Cheap data packs are everywhere. I heard that even free data packs were being offered at some point. And mobile devices of all price ranges are easily available. India consistently ranks first among the countries with the highest number of Instagram users. When I checked last, the number was 230 million. That's a lot of people. Whilst internet has been democratized, social media is perhaps also democratic to a large extent. Handloom textile industry is sadly not. There has been no effort to reduce the prices, which can only happen with generous government support. The only saree I can think of, handloom saree I can think of, which can still be called as affordable, is the khadi cotton saree, which is an amazing piece. I personally love it. I adore its association with Indian freedom struggle. To me, it was one of the most powerful tools that was being used by our nationalist leaders and was perhaps the final nail in the coffin of British colonial rule in India. But khadi cotton sarees cannot compete with the aesthetics of the Instagram-worthy varieties. Yet, I open my Instagram and my feed is flooded with beautiful pictures of amazing women wearing gorgeous sarees, enticing me, tempting me to spend beyond my means. To be fair, it is not their fault. It is not the fault of the people who are posting the content. They have the best intentions in mind. They are trying to promote a noble cause. It is not their fault if FOMO is the reality of our age. Fear of missing out. I have felt this myself. In the initial days when I ventured into the sari content consuming community, I had this stage of anxiety. I felt this intense peer pressure to buy sarees that I could not afford. No one was putting a gun to my head and forcing me to. But being in that space, I felt that I needed to look a certain part in order to belong. And humans are social creatures. We want to belong. Sometimes I gave into the temptation. Sometimes I managed to detach myself. And sometimes I had the cheeky little thought of cheating the system by giving into the ever-expanding market of the paid handloom industry. Sari is a huge market in India. Last year it amounted to 490 billion rupees. That's a massive market, but it's also highly disorganized. Most sarees in India are made in large-scale manufacturing units, which is commonly called power loom nowadays. Now, power loom is very well established in Indian economy and it generates employment. It has been in existence from colonial times, in fact. It is not a new concept. Power looms can replicate a lot of designs that are made in handloom. They can't do the complex ones though. And there are some subtle differences that connoisseurs are able to identify. Handloom can never compete with the economy of scale and the price point of power loom. India is a huge country. We're the most populated country in the world and there is space for everything. The trouble is not the presence of power loom. The trouble is the misrepresentation. What does paid handloom industry do? It hurts the fine craftsmanship, the weaving legacy of this country. It is a huge disservice to the knowledge that is passed down generations and the sheer amount of hours weavers devote to hone their skills. Which begets the question, are social media fueled sari movements inadvertently somewhat responsible for the proliferation of paid handloom industry? Whilst you think about it, I want to come back to the question I asked at the beginning. What is affordable? In a country where the average person earns 8,000 rupees in a month, are handloom sarees affordable? Thank you.